Let's start with the cold, hard data, because it's almost unbelievable. In the early 1970s, if you were an American adult, you had about a 1 in 8 chance of being obese. Today, that number is 4 in 10. Severe obesity, what doctors call morbid obesity, was less than 1% of the population. Today, it's nearly 10%. And the average woman today is 26 pounds heavier than her counterpart in the 1970s. That's not the weight of a handbag. That's the weight of a car tire, permanently strapped to the frame. So what happened? Researchers have spent decades untangling this, and they found it wasn't one thing. It was a perfect storm. A complete transformation of what we eat, how much we eat, how we move, and the entire invisible architecture of daily life. And more importantly, what does it mean for us? If the environment made us gain it, can we reverse engineer our way out? Let's rewind the tape to the 70s. Chapter 1. The Calorie Flood. We'll start with the most obvious. The sheer volume of fuel we're dumping into our bodies. In 1970, the average American ate about 2,100 calories a day. By 2010, that number jumped to over 2,600. That's an extra 500 calories every single day. Now, 500 calories doesn't sound like much. It's a latte and a muffin. But an extra 100 calories a day would turn into 10 pounds of weight gain in a year. Do the math on 500 calories, and you start to see what happened. But it's not just the quantity, it's the quality. The USDA tracked what we ate, and the story is insane. We're eating way more refined grains, way more added fats, and the biggest explosion? Cheese. We eat nearly 3 times as much cheese as we did in the 70s. And chicken, which seems healthy, but we're eating it processed, breaded, and fried in ways that didn't exist back then. But the real game changer, the thing that flipped the switch, was sugar. And that brings us to the villain everyone loves to hate: high fructose corn syrup. Here's the twist though. Scientifically, high fructose corn syrup is no worse than regular sugar. A 2022 study confirmed it. If it's not chemically worse, why does it matter? Because it was cheap. Stupidly, absurdly cheap. When this corn syrup hit the market in the 70s, it turned sugar from a precious commodity into a filler. Manufacturers started adding it to everything. Ketchup, bread, yogurt, salad dressing, soup. Things that were never sweet before suddenly became sugar delivery systems. Now, soda is a classic example. Back in the 70s, it was a treat. By the 90s, it was a daily fixture. And the same sugar explosion happened in foods you'd never suspect. A healthy granola bar often had more sugar than a Snickers. The baseline shifted. We didn't just start eating more. We started marinating in sugar 24/7 without even realizing it. But eating more sugar was only half the story, because the size of what we were eating was about to get a whole lot bigger. Chapter 2. The size of everything exploded. Okay, we're eating more calories, but why? Take a look at the drink in your cup holder. That's where the story begins. Researchers did a massive study looking at 181 different foods from the 70s to the 90s. The results are jaw-dropping. In just 20 years, soft drinks grew 52% larger. Salty snacks, 60% bigger. Hamburgers packed on an extra 136 calories each just from the size increase alone. In the 1950s, a McDonald's burger was about 3.7 ounces. Today's quarter pounder is double that, sometimes triple. Fries started at a measly 2.4 ounces. A large today is nearly 6 ounces. But the soda is the real kicker. The original McDonald's soda, 7 ounces. Their large today, 30 ounces. That's a 400% increase. Let's go to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven introduced the 32-ounce Big Gulp in 1976. It was a sensation. Then, in 1986, the 44-ounce Super Big Gulp. Then, in 1989, the 64-ounce Double Gulp. By the 2000s, you could buy a drink in a jug that was designed to last a family meal, and we were drinking it alone in our cars. And here's the insidious part. Researchers call it portion distortion. Once the 64-ounce bucket became normal, the 32-ounce cup started to feel like a rip-off. Our brains recalibrated. What used to be insanely huge became standard. And it wasn't just fast food. National surveys showed portions grew in homes too. Our standard dinner plates grew from 7 inches to 9 inches. We cooked bigger casseroles, and restaurants started serving bigger portions to meet the demand. In fact, if you go to Japan or France, a standard meal is often closer to what we'd call an appetizer. We didn't just get bigger, we changed what normal looks like. The net effect? Researchers estimated these bigger portions added 200 to 500 calories a day compared to the 70s. That's the exact same number as the calorie increase we saw earlier. We were eating more, a lot more. But here's the paradox. We were also exercising more. So why did the scale keep climbing? That's the mystery we're about to solve. Chapter 3. The movement vanished. If you're thinking we're heavier because we're lazier, you're wrong. We actually exercise more today than they did in the 70s. Back then, gyms were weird. Hiking was niche. Working out was something athletes did. So if we're more active at the gym, why are we heavier? Because the gym is only 30 minutes of your day. The other 23.5 hours, that's where the weight gain lives. You see, in the 70s, movement was woven into the fabric of life. It was unavoidable. You walked to the bus stop. You walked to school. You worked a job that likely involved standing, walking, or moderate labor. You came home and cooked from scratch, chopping vegetables, stirring pots, washing dishes by hand. You mowed the lawn with a push mower that actually required effort. The kids played outside until the streetlights came on, because there was no internet to pull them inside. Researchers studied time use data from 1965 to 2010. They found that for mothers, just as an example, sedentary time increased by 7 hours a week. That's an entire workday of sitting that replaced an entire workday of moving. For men, it was the same. The desk job became the default. Manual labor declined. And then, the screens arrived. The TV existed in the 70s, sure. It was a piece of furniture. You had 3 channels, and when the shows ended, you turned it off. Now, you have a smartphone in your pocket, designed by the smartest engineers on Earth to keep you scrolling. The average American now spends between 7 and 11 hours a day staring at a screen. That's not just entertainment. That's time that used to be spent doing something. Washing the car, walking to the store, tinkering in the garage. That movement is gone, and it's not coming back unless we force it. But here's the thing. It wasn't just that we stopped moving. The food itself was changing too, in ways we never saw coming. Chapter 4. The system was hacked. We've talked about the food, we've talked about the portions, we've talked about movement, but there's a deeper layer here. The entire system changed. In 1970, food cost a lot. It represented about a quarter of a household's budget. They didn't snack because snacks were a luxury. They finished their plate because throwing out food was throwing out money. Abundance wasn't a choice, it was literally unavailable. Today, food costs about half that relative to income, and cheap food is almost always processed food. In fact, that kind of food is engineered to be cheap, shelf-stable, and addictive. At the same time, the 70s saw a massive social shift. Women entered the workforce in historic numbers. That was an enormous gain for equality, but it also created a vacuum. Who had time to cook a pot roast from scratch for 2 hours after a 9-hour workday? The answer was nobody. And the food industry saw that vacuum and filled it with a fire hose of convenience. Fast food, takeout, frozen meals. And as we've seen, restaurant meals are bigger, denser, and loaded with the unholy trinity: salt, fat, sugar. This isn't a criticism of working women. This is a structural reality that nobody planned for. We built a world where the default is to outsource cooking. But the final piece of the puzzle, the most unsettling one, is what we call ultra-processed food. It barely existed in the 70s. Walk into a grocery store in 1972 and you'd find food. Walk into a grocery store today and you find food-like products. Things engineered in a lab by food scientists to hit a bliss point. The exact ratio of sugar, salt, and fat that overrides your brain's ability to say, "I'm full." Your body has hormonal signals, ghrelin, leptin, insulin, that regulate hunger. A bowl of rice and vegetables talks to those signals. A bag of Doritos shouts over them. It's designed to make you eat the whole bag without realizing it. In the 70s, you were eating food. Today, for many people, the food is eating you. And that brings us to the perfect storm. Chapter 5: The Perfect Storm. Now, let's connect the dots. Why were people in the 70s slimmer? It wasn't willpower. It wasn't virtue. It was the environment. It was a world where food was expensive, so you ate less of it. Where portions were small because supersize hadn't been invented. Where ultra-processed food was a sci-fi concept and sugar was a treat, not a default ingredient. Where cooking at home was just what you did. Where daily life required physical effort, walking, standing, doing. And where screens were a box in the corner with a schedule, not a slot machine in your pocket. Today, our world is optimized for consumption and sedentary behavior. It's capitalism doing what it does, making things cheaper, bigger, and more convenient. And the unintended consequence is a population that is, statistically, the heaviest in human history. This didn't happen because we stopped caring. It happened because the ground shifted beneath our feet. But here's the thing about the ground. You can learn to walk on it differently. What's the takeaway? It's not despair, it's clarity. Once you see the architecture, you can navigate it. When you know the large soda is a historical aberration, you can choose the small. When you know that ultra-processed food is designed to make you eat past full, you can start cooking for yourself. And when you know that modern life has engineered movement out, you can engineer it back in. The 70s didn't have the answers, but they accidentally got a few things right. And maybe the best diet advice isn't a new supplement or a 30-day challenge. Maybe it's just understanding how we got here. And maybe that's how we finally shed that tire. If this changed the way you think about food, share it with someone. And drop a comment. What's one thing from the 70s you wish we'd kept? Please give this story a like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one, when I uncover the next hidden story.